What's up, barbers and stylists? My name is Vinny the Barber, here to present to you guys a step-by-step skin fade comb-over with a beard trim. I'm happy to help all barbers and stylists out there who are serious about succeeding in the industry. Those of you who don't know who I am, I'm a certified licensed master barber with 12 years of experience, and I'm here to help everyone in the industry achieve success. Here we are in my studio, so let's get to it. I'm going to start off by using my wall detailer trimmer to create my first guideline, which is going to be my skin line. When doing a skin fade, the skin line is going to be the most important line you will be creating, as it will determine how consistent the fade will be around the head. The cleaner and straighter you create your guidelines, the cleaner and straighter the fade will be. You want to make sure you are using a trimmer to create your skin line and not a clipper close, as the trimmer will get a lot closer to the scalp as opposed to a clipper. When doing a skin fade, you want to get as close to the scalp as possible. The closer you get to the scalp, the more your fade will pop and the more cleaner your fade will appear. I'm going to continue this process all the way around the head, starting from the back and working my way from side to side. Once my skin line is created, I will then be using my wall senior clipper all the way open, creating my second guideline about a ½ inch right above the skin line. My second guideline is going to be known as my zero line. You could also use a number 0 guard as opposed to using your clipper open to create this guideline, but I prefer using my clipper open using the natural blade itself instead of a guard, as it will pick up more hair and create a cleaner guideline. Just like the skin line, you want to make sure that the zero guideline is straight and consistent all the way around the head. After completing my second guideline, which was my zero line, I will then be creating a third guideline using my number 2 guard and taking it up to the parietal ridge of the head. The reason I create this third guideline with my number 2 guard is because I want to make sure I make the area where I'm going to be fading as clean as possible by removing all unnecessary weight and bulk. Once I create my number 2 guideline, I will then begin removing it using a number 4 guard, applying a freehand method utilizing my wrist as I move my side lever from all the way closed to slowly opening it up. I will then apply the same method using a number 3 guard to blend into the number 4, and then work my way back down to my number 2 guard to blend into the number 3. Next, I will then be using my 1½ guard on my wall senior, blending right into the number 2. I will be using my side lever, moving it from top, middle to bottom to complete this process. The closer I stay on the guideline, the more closed I have my clipper, and the more I move the clipper up on the head, I slowly open the blade up. I will now be using my number 1 guard, blending it right into that 1½ using that same top, middle, bottom method with my side lever. When fading hair, we make lines and take them out. All guards blend into each other, and we want to focus on one guard at a time. Notice how I started with the number 2, used the 1½ to blend into the number 2, and used the number 1 to blend into the 1½ You always want to have a neat and organized step-by-step method, focusing on one step at a time, as well as taking your time when fading to assure proper quality. I will now be switching over to my Andis Masters using my number 0 guard, blending right into the number 1 that I've created with my wall senior. I like to use the number 0 magnetic guard on the Andis Masters as my personal preference to go over any lines or dark spots that I see, making my fade appear cleaner and smoother. Next, I will begin to remove my skin line, starting with my half guard on my wall detailer trimmer, blending right into the number 0. This is a great method to help you take out the skin line much easier with your clipper. If you don't have this trimmer and guard available, you could also use your clipper halfway open. I am now going to use my Andis Masters to finish taking out the skin line completely, utilizing the corners of my clipper to get into any small dark areas. You want to make sure you use the corners of your clippers when trying to hit any small dark spots that you see, as the corners will get into those tight areas. This will help you achieve much more of a cleaner fade. I will now be moving on to the left side of my client's head, repeating the same process that I demonstrated on the right side. I will be removing the bulk of his hair using a number 4 guard and utilizing my wrist to flick right into the weight of his hair using a freehand technique. I want to make sure I remove all of the bulk in this area so that this area is clean and prepared for me to take out my next 2 guidelines. I will then now continue taking the guidelines out on the back of the head using my number 1 guard, blending right into the number 2. When I do my fades, I like to begin on the right side of the head, working my way to the back and then to the left. Next, I will be using my number 0 guard on my Andis Masters, blending right into the number 1. I'm repeating the same exact steps I showed earlier, starting with the number 2, blending the 1 into the 2, and then blending the 0 into the 1. Following that, I will be going back to my half guard on my wall detailer trimmer, blending right into the number 0, as this will soften the skin line, making it much easier to take out, like I've mentioned earlier. Next, I will be completing the removal of my skin line using the corners of my Andis Masters and taking my time as I want to make my blend as clean as possible. Fading hair is an art and you want to make sure the process is not rushed and you want to aim for precise quality. I will now be completing the final process of my skin fade, finishing on the left side of the head, taking out my last 2 guidelines. I am blending my 1.5 clip into the number 2, followed by blending my number 1 into the 1.5, using my wall detailer half guard to soften the skin line, and completing the skin line removal with my Andis Masters, moving my side lever from middle to close. I will now be going over my client's head with an Andis shaver, as this will get as close to the scalp as possible, making my fade appear enhanced for maximum quality. Remember, the closer you get to the scalp, the more your fade will pop. I will then be using a straight razor, going over any excess lines or stubble, as I like to finish off by polishing and detailing my blend. Next, I will begin scissor cutting the top of my client's hair, as I start off by wetting his hair and combing it back. I will begin in the front section by picking up the first layer of hair and creating what's called a traveling guideline. You always want to create a guideline and travel it through the head, making sure everything is all even. If you lose your guideline, you can always find it at the front of the head where you originally created it. I'm going to be starting at the front, working my way to the middle and then to the back of the head. I will then double check my work by working my way from the back to the middle to the front, making sure everything is neat and all even. Next, I will be combing my client's hair down to the left side of his head as he wears his hair combed over to the left. I want to remove the weight line where his hair lays, so I'm going to be using my thinning shears, using a thinning shear over comb method, as this will remove the weight in bulk and allow his hair to lay properly, giving it a smooth and gradual appearance. Next, I will begin trimming my client's beard using a number 4 guard, as this is the length that my client prefers. You want to make sure you're going against the direction that the beard grows, allowing the clipper to take off as much hair on the beard as possible. I will now be using a number 1 guard to trim around my client's mustache area, using the corners of my clipper to get into the tighter spaces around the lips and nose. I'm going to use my Andis T outliner to begin lining up my client's beard, as I will be carefully creating an outline by tapping and pulling away with my T-blade. I will then be switching back over to my Andis Masters to begin skin tapering the top of the beard, blending it into a skin fade. I will be using my corners of the clipper once again, as this is a very tight area. I'm going to switch over to my number 1 guard to blend the longer hair of the beard into the skin tapered top of the beard. Moving on to the left side of the beard, I will start by lining up behind the beard as I tap and pull away with my T outliners. Moving on to the cheek, I will begin at the bottom of the beard, working my way to the top as I repeat the same steps as I did on the right side by tapping and pulling away with my T-blade. I will be using my Masters once again to taper in the top of the beard, blending it into the skin fade. Moving on to the neckline, I'm going to lay my client back with his head tilted up as I repeat the same process by tapping and pulling away with my T-blade to create an even outline on the neck. I will now be lining up the top left corner of my client's head, as I want to create a nice even line coming down. Notice how I utilize the corner of my T-blade to do this, as I drag the blade down, allowing the corner to do the work. I will then follow that by turning my trimmer to the side as I use the entire blade, completing my line by tapping and pulling away. I'm going to switch over to the right side of the head, repeating the same process as I did on the left by dragging the blade down, letting the corner do the work, and then turning it sideways to tap and pull away with the entire blade. I will be finishing off my line using my straight razor blade as I stretch and pull the skin, giving nice and easy, careful strokes to create a precise and even line. Same thing for the beard. I'm going to stretch and pull the skin as I straight razor the beard line that I created with my trimmers. I'm going to do this carefully as I want to create a sharp and precise line on my client's beard. That completes this tutorial of the step-by-step skin fade comb over with a beard trim. I really hope you guys enjoyed this video and that it was helpful to you in your own craft. I am happy to share my knowledge and expertise with everyone, and I wish all barbers and stylists best of luck in your career.